week of my indie game dev fun time. December 2nd, I created this big aphid mini-boss for Entomophobia. Any wishlisters? December 3rd, I edited a video to show off Dirt Simulator that I made in 11.5 hours. Took 30 minutes to edit that, and then started drawing a big bumblebee not-so-mini mini-boss. I wanted it to look a bit dumb, so I gave it some big goofy eyes. I then added those new mini-bosses to the Unity project, and realized I needed to add outlines for all the enemies that I had created for the enemy update. I cut out all of those enemy sprites, added them back into the game. Look at all those little dudes. I also checked out the performance of the last devlog. Look at that performance. Finished up all the enemies, then edited the enemy spawning script. There were some problems with the new enemies and the way I made the spawner script spawn the new mini bosses. Look at me draw with those locust game objects. I made the big scissor weapon attack towards the closest enemy instead of random ones. Look at that damage. I then released Enemy Update Part 1 for Entomophobia. Go wishlist the game. Bonk. 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 December 4th, I spent an hour on adding a new upgrade to Dirt Simulator, the Mole, a little dude that gives the player 1 dirt per second. I spent another hour fixing some small stuff on Shrimp Game. I wanted to try and make a little city builder or colony sim type game, so I drew some little starter assets really quick so I could start prototyping the ideas. Created the project, but then I had to edit a TikTok for that Shrimp Game update, as the update was about to go live. I then started working on Untitled City Game, which will be on Steam under the name Little Porp, meaning village when translated from Icelandic. Go wishlist it if it's on Steam when the video is posted. Top link in the description. My idea was limiting the map to a 32 by 32 tile map to lower the scope of the game, and then I left for 6 hours. I created an upgraded version of the little Viking dude. Then I started to draw all the little sprites that I knew I would need for the idea that was in my head. The main idea would be that there was a small amount of resources to again keep the scope low. I don't want to go the route of Last Hope. Constant changes to the game idea over a 2-year period, overall ending in sadness. So I drew berries and fish for food. I drew a log, which comes from a tree and can be turned into firewood. And I also drew ice, because the map will ideally freeze over every few minutes of gameplay, so you can still get water, but it'll just be a little harder to get. Then for buildings, I made a house, a berry gatherer's hut, the hub, a fishing spot, a stockpile, and a firewood cutter like Banished. I then chopped up all the sprites and started coding some stuff for it. December 5th, with an hour of messing around, I had the ability to place buildings. I had the building instantiated with a lowered alpha value so it was slightly transparent, then had that building moved to the center of the tile that is currently under the mouse's position in world space. I drew these little colored tiles, threw them into the project, and I started making a heat map, heat being one of the main things in the game, like Frostpunk, but much worse. The heat map loops through each of the 1024 tiles and adds a tile of the correct color, and it worked correctly the first time. Doesn't do anything yet, but it's there. I then added a season changer. In the end, each day or month will be a minute or so, 12 minutes making up a year. With a small amount of coding, I had the little fellas going around and picking up objects. I added the ability to click and drag a selection box using this RTS selector thing I found. Then when you select the axe button, you can choose trees that need to be cut down. When marked, a box is enabled above the tree. The selection box looks weird, but it still works. And the Viking dudes go to the tree, sit there for a little bit, and then the tree spawns 2 logs and disappears. December 6th, I added functionality to the berry building, which gives whatever Viking that is working at the building a job to pick nearby berries. I then added some code to the building placement that would check what tiles beneath the building and would either allow or disable building placement. Drew a couple more buildings, put them into the project, and it was off to work on Entomophobia. As a part of pushing Entomophobia towards its full release, I needed to redo the maps. So I started by looking through many pictures of fields to find new ideas for tiles and assets. I then cut out a large majority of the empty map, took a screenshot, put it in Photoshop, and started sketching an idea overlay above the map. Once finished, I exported it and overlaid it over the field map. Looks good. December 7th, I placed the tiles I already had into their respective places. I created a tall grass tile and a harvested wheat tile, and a hay bale sprite. Looks good. After a little while, I created some tiles for a forest floor, which were made up by some base muddy/mossy tiles, and some overlay detail tiles with leaves, sticks, and mushrooms. Then I made flowers. Look at those tiles. I drew some trees. Look at this tree, and that tree, and this other tree. I made some sprites that would be the place where barns and sheds would eventually be, and put them into the world. I then added a sorting group to the characters to prevent the thing where these weapons can appear in front of the trees, and I shipped that update to the map so you can go see the updated world if you play the game. And if not, do it, please. December 8th, I had added some new tiles that were 16 by 16 instead of 8 by 8 pixel tiles. I redrew a larger version of the tree sprite, and then created the tiles for when the mini ice age happens in the game. I then coded something for the transition from spring to winter, and it was an infinite loop. Oh, now look at that map freezing over. I created a shadow for the objects in the game. Looks very good. I created this snow particle effect. It took about 10-ish minutes. And finally, I created some snowy tree sprites and added them to the game. Again, please wishlist Entomophobia and check out my other links, such as the reinstated Patreon page.